The rumours included that I would tighten the laws of the church because I was conservative and traditional, and that I would oppose the new modernist air that was emerging at the time. And it was also said that I was a threat to their plans because I opposed relativism. When I was asked whether or not I accepted the will of God, I replied, yes, I accept the will of God. While all the protocols were being processed, I thought to myself that there were people in the group of cardinals who were better qualified than I was. But God in his goodness chose me out of all men, a simple and humble worker in the Lord's vineyard. A phrase I made public on the day of my election as successor to the Apostle Peter. I knew very well what was in store for me, and my enemies had grown stronger and more numerous. I was aware of some of the files that Pope Paul VI had created during his pontificate on the Vatican Curia, and which we later studied together with my predecessor John Paul II. My wish was to initiate a thorough cleansing, and I knew that this would not be easy, that there would have to be a total reorganization within the Vatican Curia. I was aware that it would most likely cost me my life, as it had cost my predecessors, but I decided to take the more difficult road, supported by the help of some people of faith. To this end, I began a much-needed purification within the legionaries of Christ at the time, forcing their founder, Marcial Maciel, to withdraw from all public office. That alone earned me enemies, not only within the church but also outside it. I knew the greatest purge awaited me. I knew the Curia of the Vatican and all the intrigues that were drawn out there. I knew I wasn't the favourite candidate for Peter's chair, not because of a lack of quality, but because I wouldn't help the Masons in their goals. In the meantime, they would prepare the ideal candidate according to their interests. They needed someone to burn while choosing a candidate who was in line with the powers, and that stopgap was me. Here Pope Benedict sighed deeply, and his gaze was like an endless sea of peace. But God, in his infinite mercy toward his church, was kind enough to delay the great mystery of iniquity a little longer, for he knew that this mystery would be revealed after my death, and that he would act in complete freedom, supported by his most faithful associates. The great destroyer of the church was already on his feet. His name was already heard in the corridors and in the hidden meetings, but he had to wait until he was well prepared and the right moment came, a moment that God had prolonged in his goodness thanks to the prayers of the saints and the righteous souls in the mystical body of the church. Simple, peaceful, silent souls with unshakable faith, able to lay down their lives for Jesus Christ. Souls who do not give in to evil and who know where the fault lies. These souls are loved by the Lord and are present in great numbers. They are quietly ordained and form a mighty army that walks at the hand of Mother God. Then an angelic smile appeared on Pope Benedict's face, and he continued, "That I was an inadequate instrument was not unknown to God, for he gives his strength, and strength to bear the cross with love, as he himself has done. And this was a comfort to my soul, which was already beginning to feel the rejection by the majority of the members of the College of Cardinals and the civil authorities, and was aware that the battle had only just begun. My suffering as Pope began on the first day of my election, when I stepped on the balcony and saw the roar of a sea of souls. I understood my fate. God had me in his grip. When I was dressed as Peter's successor, a shiver ran over me. Throughout my body I felt like a lame lamb being led to the slaughter. Over the course of my life, I have come to realize that the Lord's ways are not easy and are littered with roses and thistles. It is dangerous to believe that one can choose any path, that they all lead to the truth. This is a great mistake on the part of the person who is currently leading the church. I'm talking about Francis. He can promote this kind of regime and division within. In a way, this means accepting communion with relativism, an ideology that I have condemned countless times, and with revolutionary ideologies that seek to impose the powers of the world by force. The grave errors propagated by the Church from the desecrated throne of Peter drive souls to suicide. In an act of hellish violence, evil has already been done and cannot be undone. Only God can save his church from falling into the abyss. And I had already seen this clearly during the sessions of the Second Vatican Council. There I had a vision of the future of the errors that had arisen from that moment on, thanks to the misinterpretation of the Council and the many purple wolves that had infiltrated, and which had certainly entered through the schism in the Church during the pontificate of John the 23rd. All my life I have fought against relativism, and in many of my writings I have condemned these kinds of revolutionary theories that are against God. It saddened me personally to see how most cardinals, except for a few, adopted this ideology, and that is precisely why they eagerly sought reforms within the Church, reforms that would include my elimination, for I was their greatest obstacle. I would have felt their boundless hatred of me, and had it not been for the mercy of God, who was always with me, I would certainly have succumbed to these attacks. They had several occasions to kill me, but God preserved me, for my hour had not yet come, until the day when I would be eliminated. I knew that with my death the sheep would spread, but I was sure that the divine shepherd would gather them in his flock. I was only an instrument in the plan of salvation, nothing more, and soon the great purification would come. It is our Lord Jesus Christ who is truly in charge of his church. After my death there was great confusion. Somehow God allowed the wickedness of the hearts of those who claimed to be true disciples of Christ, and who in reality became the Judas of this age, to cause even more confusion and division within the church. On my 95th birthday, among many other slander talk, it was said, "This is the Pope who did not want to be Pope." I heard it myself live from some cardinals. I felt tired and exhausted. I was deprived of all enlightenment and comfort. I was on the road to Calvary with our Lord, and embraced the cross of the Redeemer. I knew that soon my hour would come. I experienced the prison of loneliness, the fear of not being able to speak openly except through codes and parables. I experienced the prison of guarding by a prison guard who I knew could not be trusted. I was overwhelmed and without comfort, but I tried to imitate our Master as best I could, and I did not refuse the bitter cup that was offered to me, always with the grace of God, with all my trust in Jesus Christ and distrustful of my own strength. I knew that Judas Iscariot was by my side day and night, and that he would soon betray me with a treacherous kiss. Yet I did not reject him, for I saw the hand of God in everything. Although, like a meek lamb led to the slaughter, I was dumb and did not open my mouth except to bless and forgive. Judas Iscariot was amazed at Jesus, the divine master, because he did not live up to his expectations as a political warrior, but was a peace-loving, humble and meek man. Somehow I saw myself as a reflection of this image. I was meek and humble, a man of peace, and this confused many who challenged me. Many put me to the test, but the most disturbing was my jailer, my own secretary. Now moving on to, or rather going back to 2013, March the 12th. It was March the 11th that the communications began between Yahweh and Pope Benedict. And he wasn't a pushover. And it is true that behind the scenes I really had to slice and dice using the scriptures and all kinds of things, because Benedict's initial rejection, which was read by myself, I don't think Yah read it, and really got my fire up, was he was rejecting on the basis of an Australian man 40 years before climbing the statue of David and smashing it with a hammer, saying, I'm Jesus, and all I could think about was Yah's magnificent tapestry. And to become rejected on this comparison, yeah. So I sliced and diced, and then finally he did. He humbled himself. Hello, Mr. Marshall. But anyway, it's all good. So this is from the 12th of March. And it's sent via George Ganswain, Archbishop Ganswain. This is the point, his private secretary. And he says this is a photo from after the Holy Father's Rosary Walk when we were returning home, and that is Lake Albano, which is where Yah and I were staying in the vicinity once we got to Rome. And you can see, thank you, Archbishop Gale, this is my response. This is the Christ's wife. We appreciate the Holy Father. And then the change in Benedict the next morning. Hello there again, Mr. Marshall. And we have gone through this at other times. Just again, Pope Benedict, and then on the right at the top is Father Giuseppe Ciavello and the traitor, Archbishop Gail Ganswain. That was sent to us by Sister Maria Della Rosa herself, who was taken away in the early hours of the morning of April the 3rd, 2013. Thugs organised by the traitor Ganswain on the orders of the Antichrist Francis. And she writes, Archbishop Gail Ganswain is the personal secretary to His Holiness, prefect of the pontifical household, and is the titular bishop of the Diocese of Urbs, Salvia, Italy. He will serve the new pope, as well as Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI. He was also his secretary when he, the Pope, was just a cardinal, and has known him for a very big majority of his life. My name is Sister Maria Della Rosa. I helped the Holy Father make this biography. So she is referring to the biography of the communications between Yahweh and Benedict, all of which I have beside me now as I go through with you Benedict's Omega Testament. All right, this can be part 2. I'll come back with part 3.